So what else does this revolutionary transit of Uranus and Gemini have in store for us? In my last video about this, I went further into Uranian energy and what we can expect leading up to, and a little bit about the history. Now I want to dive a little bit deeper. So I covered Uranian energy. Now I want to cover Gemini energy. So of course, Uranus is moving into Gemini on July 7th of 2025, just to recap you guys, and will be in Gemini until November 8th when it retrogrades back into Taurus, and then will permanently be in Gemini on April 26th of 2026 until August 3rd of 2032. Then Uranus will move into Cancer. We'll start by going over Gemini energy, and then we'll talk about the transit of Uranus and Gemini itself. So to talk about Gemini energy, we obviously have to touch on the fact that Gemini is mutable air. It is really known as the cosmic communicator, the seeker, the messenger, and kind of the jack of all trades. It is ruled by planet Mercury. Of course, Mercury co-rules both Gemini and Virgo, and it is represented by the twins or duality. Gemini is a very mental sign. It's an air sign, of course, but you know, we can kind of argue to say that Gemini is the most mentally stimulating of the air signs. It's very curious, it's very witty, it's very articulate, intellectual, playful. It likes to communicate, it likes to learn. Learning is a big one with Gemini. It likes to network. It has a lot to do with language, thought, curiosity, the media or information. So it can also have to do with like questioning things, and it's of course duality, so two sides of the same coin. If you think about like the Lover's card, which is ruled by Gemini in the tarot, the Lover's card is a representation of duality. And also, to go deeper into that, not to dive too deep, but the Devil card can be seen as a duality to the Lover's card. Some shadow traits of Gemini could be, you know, Gemini energy tends to be overly communicative, so gossip could be one. Also restless, superficial, inconsistent, unreliable, scattered, nervous, overthinking, overly stimulated, talking more than listening, and or using manipulative words or language. Deception by the media definitely comes to mind. So we did talk about Uranus in the previous video, so go check that one out if you want more information on Uranian energy. But putting this all together, Uranus is going to be transiting Gemini for like 7.5, 8 years. And this is going to be a combination of Uranian energy, of course, transiting through the sign of Gemini. And I did go over this in the previous video, but if you guys want more information on Uranian energy, go check that video out. I also went over the history, but just to speed you guys up, the last time that Uranus was in Gemini was 1941 to 1949. This was, of course, World War II, the unification of Italy, as well as the Russian reform and China's reform, many other countries' reformation, the rise of TV and radio. The time previous to that was 1858 to 1866. There was the transatlantic telegraph cable from North America to Europe, as well as the American Civil War, of course, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, and the expansion of railroads and transportation. And the time previous to that was, of course, 1774 to 1782. And most famously, this was the American and French Revolutions, the birth of the United States, and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and various other things. So, of course, this is going to be the United States Uranus return. Now, when Uranus moves into Gemini, we have to keep in mind that Uranus is going from its fall position in Taurus, the earthiest of the earth signs, where Uranus is not comfortable. It can't express itself freely, into a sign it's more comfortable in. So this is very much going to speed things up, and Uranus is going to be able to naturally express itself in a much more natural way. Uranus is very like pulses of energy, lightning bolt energy. This is a very powerful, proactive energy. We can think of things like intellectual innovation, radical shifts in communication, as well as information or the ways that we are receiving information, technological leaps and bounds. You know, we can really look at this as kind of like a mental evolution of sorts. It can be sudden change, disruptive awakenings. Uranus is the planet of awakenings. It's of course associated with like the higher octave of Mercury, or some people call it the mind of God. It can also be a disruption of tradition, education, media, and of course rebellion, very Uranian in nature, rebellion against traditional norms of doing things. It can be shifts in how we speak, how we think, how we write, how we share ideas, and also new social avenues. Now, the shadow side of this transit can certainly be information overload, manipulation of the media, disconnection from the truth, over-reliance on AI technology, or I should also say misuse of AI technology, fragmentation, disconnection, and this can kind of be a paradox because there can be things that seemingly pop up that are supposed to bring us closer together, which end up furthering us apart from each other, like say social media or other forms of technology that are meant to bridge some sort of gap in connection but actually divide us further. This can be a very restless time, a very rebellious time, and also a time where there's kind of like a lack of depth. We might be more prone collectively to like mental burnout or overstimulation. Now, as you guys heard in the kind of overview of some of the history, which I can do a separate video on if you guys want to know more about that and we can dive deeper into it, but Uranus and Gemini does have a correlation with warlike energies. So I'm not trying to fearmonger or scare you, and history doesn't necessarily repeat itself exactly to the T, but the energy is still there in some way. So that's something that we can dive deeper into if you guys are interested. Also, towards the end of this transit, Saturn and Uranus will be making their conjunction, and this was a conjunction if you were born in the like 89 to the early 90s, the first couple years of the 90s. I believe it was until 92 or 93. This was a transit that happened then in Capricorn more specifically. But it's not like all of the energy of this transit is going to be presenting itself to us at the beginning of the transit. It's going to unfold over the next 8 years. We can also see things like movements associated with speech or freedom of speech, right? We can see major changes in education. We can see like redefining of social interaction or our interaction with other people, social standards. I also think we might see advancements in like telepathic technology over the next 8 years. New languages could also be a possibility, as well as advancements in AI to our betterment or our detriment. And I also think there will be a massive awakening to media manipulation. So yeah, that is my part 2, guys. I will probably be doing a part 3. Let me know what you guys want me to dive into. We can dive further into the history, what my predictions are. Whatever you guys want me to talk about, I will. But yes, this has historically been a very disruptive time, especially for the United States. If you're here in the United States, don't be afraid, but it's something to be aware of. In the United States, Uranus return will be on July 26th of 2027 in the US's 7th house. So that's another thing I could dive deeper into if you guys are interested in that. I can show you that chart. Mars will also conjunct Uranus on July 4th of 2026. Which is crazy because, of course, July 4th of 2026, Mars will conjunct Uranus. So that is the Uranus return conjunct to Mars. The last time that we had Mars conjunct Uranus was the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. So this is increased tension, conflict, and hostile energy, to say the least. But personal readings for astrology and tarot up at the link in my bio, guys. Much love and stay groovy.